I am Joan, your freaky philosopher, and you are my absolute reason for being here. We meet in the space between parts. It is a space of inertia, where we suspend all limiting ideas of human potential in an authentic effort to move from darkness to light by discovering the true nature of reality.
Welcome back to the Absolute Reason Mentorship Program with a focus on gender ideology. I am Joan, your freaky philosopher, and you are my absolute reason. Today we will be looking at what is the spiritual nature of the two sexes. And I know you've all been waiting for this. Some may even be wondering, why on earth did I not start with this very topic? Well, you will soon discover that when it comes to spiritual science, it is something that must be pursued through the free will of the individual. Without that willingness and that inner desire to pursue truth for yourself, you will be lost and broken with this knowledge, because this knowledge will not help you. It is a fundamental system that is based on your will to raise yourself by yourself. And that is why I only now reveal the really juicy and necessary parts of sacred physics and spiritual science that will be incredibly important and helpful to you as a parent, or even to you as a child who may be having these questions around gender. It was in part 9 where I went into a little bit more detail as to who Rudolf Steiner is. If you missed it, go back. I also introduced this one particular quotation from him. Open quotes. True errors are not as harmful as half and quarter truths. Things completely mistaken soon become apparent, while half and quarter truths seduce people. These partial truths worm their way into life and have the most devastating effects. Close quote. But let's have a closer look at just exactly what Steiner is warning us against when he refers to half and quarter truths. Gender ideology has been moved from a truthful aspect of spiritual evolution that presses upon the individual to move and crave and yearn for a better understanding of his or her feminine and masculine aspects. This is a fundamental soul journey that we all proceed with and that we all grow with. To deny it will only aggravate it. The elites, I would call them, who know this very aspect of spiritual evolution, they were clever enough to go in at this level of energy, because remember, first was energy, then matter. And these elites know that on an aspect of energy, there is a soul pressing spiritual evolution, pressing onto the youth of our times that transform and express as a desire to better understand their masculine and feminine aspects. Now, if you get in there at the right time, which means in school, I see gender ideology at the age of 7 being introduced by school systems. And if you hop in there at the age of 7 or maybe even sooner through environmental influences, well, then you can grab that spiritual evolutionary press from that individual, and you can pervert it into whatever you want it to be. What I see in this gender ideology is that it has been perverted to the extreme state of matter. Which means when you go to that extreme state of matter, the individual becomes incredibly focused on force and control. And ultimately, it is that focus on force and control that is directed, perverted, and guided into your child cutting her tits off. But if you, as a parent or as a guardian, if you are awake and aware, and words like the occult doesn't scare you anymore, well, then you can now self-empower through the knowledge of spiritual science and discover this with your child. Your child on a spiritual soul level has more experience with regards to an understanding around masculine and feminine energetic spiritual degrees and aspects. You, however, have a vast amount of love for your child and life experience. It is not the exclusion of one or the other. It is a push and a pull. But because we are in the world of matter, you as the parent, you are captain of the ship. But never forget to continuously practice that dialectic science with your child and discover the hidden knowledge within them and explore how that knowledge can now both empower you and your child. And hell, we won't stop there. It will change the world. I promise you this. Whew, that was really a mouthful. How long was that? That was long. I'm going to go have a cup of tea. Time out. Back we go to the words of Rudolf Steiner, who was an absolute rock star in my opinion. Open quote. Spiritual science must not concern itself solely with the great riddles of existence, of the nature of human existence, and the meaning of the world, but must also seek to cast light on those questions which confront us directly. Close quote. I hope in the spirit of this quotation of Steiner that I do him justice. So let us move forward and approach gender ideology from the perspective of spiritual science. Hold on to your hats, folks, 'cause it's gonna get a little woo-woo. Rudolf Steiner, open quote. And so we must ask ourselves, what is the spiritual nature of the two sexes? We shall then see that the truths revealed by spiritual science are already sensed by many today, even by those of a materialistic world outlook. But as these inklings are only based on a materialistic conception, they often appear as illusory. Close quotes. Rudolf Steiner also said, I have emphasized again and again that it is not as easy to understand the human being out of spiritual science as it is out of materialistically orientated science. For that which we perceive as the sense-perceptible human being is for spiritual science only one member of the whole being, namely the physical body. What Rudolf Steiner is saying here is that if you were to ask a spiritual scientist, what is a woman? A spiritual scientist would not answer that question without first answering the question of what is a human being? And already it points to how a quarter and a half truth can become so destructive. If you as an individual only have one eye on the materialistic science, you would find answering questions that are actually quite basic about what is a female. You will find that very difficult because it's the very nature of the world of matter to consistently divide itself into more complex parts. It is far better and far wiser to first reach for the energetic aspect of the question. And by answering the energetic aspect of the question, and in this case that would be, what is a human being? If you answer the question of what is a human being first, the question or the answer of what is a female is automatically answered. And that is exactly what we will be doing today. So, if you were to ask a spiritual scientist, so in other words, if you were to ask me, what is a female? I would first go and answer the question as to what is a human being? And when a spiritual scientist begins to approach that question, the answer is already not just based with an eye on the physical body. Because for a spiritual scientist, the human being consists of 4 bodies. These 4 bodies are your astral body, your etheric body, your physical body, and all 3 of these bodies are enclosed by the body of the ego. So you see, we must first look at the 4 bodies of the individual, of the human being, before the answer of what is a female reveals itself. A spiritual scientist, a human being is not just one body, and this is the physical body that we in general refer to as the I, capital I. But the spiritual scientist refers to or perceives the human being with 4 different bodies. It is the ego body that first is created from the line of consciousness. Then you get the astral body. This is where we go when we dream and in our sleep state. You have the etheric body. This is your creative body. That biorhythmic frequency field bubble that a lot of people would call your aura. It is your creative body, where things from your environment as well as things from within you form a relationship. And this is also why we call it the creative body. It moves formless into form. And then, of course, you have the physical body, which is actually the only point where masculine and feminine aspects are divided through human organs. So in other words, a very clear line is drawn in the sand as to what a woman looks like physically and what a man looks like physically. But still, to the spiritual scientist, that is only one aspect. But the spiritual scientist actually looks at all four bodies: the ego, the astral, the etheric, and the physical. So let's go back to Rudolf Steiner's lecture titled as Man and Woman in Light of Spiritual Science. Everything in life has two aspects. This is the very nature of dual creation. And so the same is with the human body. Rudolf Steiner, open quote, "In the man, the etheric body is female, and in the woman, it is male." Close quote. However strange it may seem, a deeper observation will disclose the following. Something of the opposite sex lies hidden in each person. It is no good, however, to look for all kinds of abnormal phenomena. Rather, one needs to pay attention to normal experiences. By confronting this fact, it is no longer possible, in the strict sense, to speak of man and woman, but rather of masculine and feminine qualities. Certain qualities in the woman work more outwardly, while others are more inward. The woman has masculine qualities within herself, and the man feminine qualities. For example, a man becomes a warrior through the outer courage of his bodily nature. A woman possesses an inner courage, the courage of sacrifice and devotion. The man brings his creative activity to bear on external life. The woman works with devoted receptivity into the world. Countless phenomena of life will become clear to us if we think of human nature as the working together of two polar opposites. In the man, the masculine pole works outwards, and the feminine lives more inwardly, while in the woman, the opposite holds true. Remember, everything in life has two aspects, two counterparts. So let us return to the words of Steiner. Spiritual science, however, also shows us a deeper reason why a masculine quality is to be found in the woman and a feminine in the man. Spiritual science speaks of how human beings strive after ever greater perfection through many lives. Our present life is always the result of a previous one. Thus, as we proceed through many lives, we experience both male and female incarnations. What arises in this way may be expressed as the effect of those experiences gathered on both sides in earthly life. Whoever is able in this way to look more deeply into the male and female natures knows that the more intimate experiences of the two sexes are very different and must be very different. Our entire earth existence is a collection of the most varied experiences. However, these experiences can only become comprehensive through their being acquired from the viewpoint of both sexes. Hence, we can see that even if we only consider the human being with regard to the two lower members, we see in reality a being with two sexes. So long as one merely looks at the physical body, little can be understood. The spiritual lying behind must also be recognized. Through his masculine nature, the inner femininity of the man appears, and through the woman's feminine nature, her inner masculinity appears. Man, Rudolf Steiner, I will wash your feet 1,000 times a day and eagerly return at sunrise to do it again. Remember, everything in life has two aspects. So let's go back to Steiner. Now one can grasp why it is that so many misjudgments have been made about this question, the question about man and woman. It depends on whether one looks at the inner or the outer aspects. In considering only one side of the human being, one is subjected entirely to chance. If, for example, one researcher finds that the man quality of the woman is humility, and another that it is an angry disposition, it simply means that both have observed only one side of the same being. Error must occur with this kind of approach, obviously. In order to recognize the full truth, however, we must look at the whole human being. Do the sexes then have no meaning in the spiritual world? Does the polarity of physical and etheric body, which makes the two sexes manifest here on earth, find no echo in the higher worlds? Certainly, we do not take our sexual nature with us into higher worlds. However, the origin of the two sexes is to be found in the astral sphere. In the same way as ice is formed from water, that which meets us in the physical world as masculine and feminine is formed out of the polarity of higher principles. We can approach this best if we consider it as the polarity of life and form. This polarity is also expressed in nature. We can see budding life in the tree, and at the same time that which builds up hard forms, slows down growth and transforms it into the solid trunk. Life and form must work together in everything that lives. And if we look at the nature of the sexes from this standpoint, we can say the following. That which corresponds to the life principle is the masculine, while that which brings life into a certain form expresses itself in the feminine. Close quote on all of Rudolf Steiner's wise brilliance, and thank you to the audio group, the Steiner audio group, who made all of this knowledge available. So in closing, when I say that past lives are relevant to the spiritual evolution of the individual and so humanity, it doesn't mean that we all now need to go and rush to past life regression to go and try and see what stories we played out, but rather an understanding of this very moment, an understanding that the questions we face today are not are the same questions humanity has faced before. It is spiritual science that allows us to perceive our children as having a hidden knowledge within them, a knowledge that was born from lives before, where they learned on a spiritual and soul level a deeper understanding of gender. We also discover today that when you ask the question of what is a woman, that it is critical to first reach for the governing energetic question of what is a human being. By answering that question first, you as an individual ensures that you do not get misguided by half and quarter truths. By answering the question of what is a human being first, you are able to guide your own progress with that solid foundation and understanding. And it was in the pursuit of that question, or the answer to that question, what is a human being, that we discovered that to a spiritual scientist, a human being has 4 bodies. We have the ego, which basically envelopes the astral, etheric, and the physical body of the human being. When it comes to gender ideology, we will, however, or we did, focus mainly on the etheric and the physical body, and the relationship formed between the subtle and the more gross aspects of who we are as a human being. With the help of Rudolf Steiner, we discovered that it is the etheric body that brings formless into form. This is achieved through the process of the dual aspect of the individual. If you have a physical expression of a feminine, of a woman, well, then your etheric body has the counterpart, the masculine part. If you physically expressed as a male with male genitalia or genitalia, I should not have used that word, my second language. Woohoo! Okay, but if you physically express as a male in a gender aspect, well then your etheric body has a very strong feminine aspect that then pushes formless into form, out into a male correspondent. I really do hope that this has given you some insight as to who you are in truth. By no shape or form do I think that a 30-minute video can teach you the entire scope of spiritual science and who you are as an individual. It is, however, my goal and my duty as a teacher to, at the very least, supply you a solid baseline from which you can further explore the truth of who you are. This is why I'm here. I'm not here to tell you what conclusion to be found, but I'm here to guide you as to how to make sure you stay in touch with reality. So we have 2 more parts left. Part 11, I will be revisiting Chloe Cole's interview with Jordan Peterson as to what the original impulses were for Chloe. And we will also revisit Abigail Schreier's lecture at Hillsdale College. And we will go have a look at her conclusions as to what the next couple of steps should be for us as humanity to try and help our children and guide them in a better way. We will revisit those conclusions and see how all of this spiritual, scientific knowledge that we have gained over the last 10 parts and how that will help us now to better understand the next couple of steps ahead for us as parents, as guardians, and as humanity. Life has a rhythm. Light is the music, and you are the dance. I am Joan, your freaky philosopher, and you are my absolute reason.